So growing up in my family, I always felt like I was a little bit of the sensitive person. So I feel like I take a lot of characteristics from both my mom and my dad. My mom being that I'm very optimistic, and my dad being that sometimes I'm a little bit sensitive. And I think the sensitivity was a little bit, let's say, detrimental to my career early on. Because when I first joined my career, I mean, think about it, it was literally 6 weeks after graduating from university, and it was the first time I ever worked at a corporation. And I remember my manager at the time, who was a great manager. I mean, if you're listening, you were a phenomenal manager, and I attribute a lot of my success to those early days of being managed by you. But I felt very alienated because I was more focused on the team dynamics, and my manager had a very particular relationship with some people on the team, a working relationship, and I always felt like I was not very much included. And I just was very sensitive to that, you know? And I was also very sensitive to criticism. I was just very sensitive overall. It was hard for me to accept criticism. It was sometimes hard for me to work with other people. But over time, my skin has thickened a bit. I attribute a lot of that to some of the people that I've worked with who have helped me sort of toughen up. But today, I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and not necessarily with anyone that there are some people I have worked with in my work that I've experienced this with, but also just in life. And I was just going across, I was literally just talking to ChatGPT, and which is crazy to say, but I came across this article that is called Working with People Who Aren't Self Aware, which I thought was very interesting because that is sometimes, I think all of us, especially in tech or even more generally in life, and I'm sure other people that are watching this video can find people like this in the industry they work in. We oftentimes find people like this. So I just wanted to go through this article and give my own insights. I thought it was a very interesting article. And fortunately, it's for free because I feel like on another link of Harvard Business Review, I wasn't able to see it, but on this one I am. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So again, Working with People Who Aren't Self-Aware by Tasha Eurich. I hope that's how her name is. So we're just going to go through this one by one here. So even though self awareness, knowing who we are and how we've seen or how we're seen, is important for job performance, career success, and leadership effectiveness, it's in remarkably short supply in today's workplace. In our nearly 5 year research program on the subject, we've discovered that although 95% of people think they're self aware, only 10 to 15% actually are, which is a pretty crazy statistic. It's pretty funny because a lot of times, like, I pride myself on my ability to talk to people and just kind of get let's say, a reading for the room. But oftentimes my wife even will tell me, like, you don't realize how other people are reacting to you, even though I feel like I can take good social cues and I could read a room well. But sometimes from her perspective, it will seem like, hey, some people don't really like what you're saying or don't really want to be a part of the conversation, but you continue going anyway. So I wonder if I fall into this 95% of people, right, that think I'm self aware, but in reality, I might not be. But let's read on and learn more. So, at the office, we don't have to look far to find unaware colleagues, people who, despite past successes, solid qualifications, or irrefutable intelligence, display a complete lack of insight into how they're coming across. And I feel like this is very much a thing in tech because I think in tech there are a lot of smart people. People I have worked with that are geniuses. I mean, I feel like they're geniuses, and trust me, I have picked their brains. I've identified them as key players. That's a shout out to one of the videos I've made. But I've identified them on the team, and they are definitely people that I want to be associated with. But sometimes it's hard to work with them. We've all been in that position where someone's very smart, but it's not necessarily the greatest to work with them. And we might even not want to work with them just because of that, right? I'd rather work with someone who maybe is just learning, right? Just sort of, let's say, learning the ropes, maybe isn't as smart or at that level yet, but just someone that's a lot nicer to work with. And I feel like that's just very important. So let's keep going here. In a survey we conducted with 467 working adults in the US across several industries, 99% reported working with at least one such person, and nearly half work with at least four. Peers were the most frequent offenders, with 73% of respondents reporting at least one unaware peer, followed by direct reports, bosses, and clients. Which is pretty interesting to know that 73% of respondents reporting at least one unaware peer, followed by direct reports, bosses. So it seems like the majority of these people are people that you work with directly. And I guess direct reports is mainly like if you are a manager. See, like I would think direct report is maybe is the direct report the person that you're managing? Maybe that's what it's considered. And then your boss and then clients. But yeah, 73% is reporting at least one unaware peer. So the people that you're directly right next to, right? The people that you're in the trenches with. Unself-aware colleagues aren't just frustrating, they can cut a team's chances of success in half. According to our research, other consequences of working with unaware colleagues include increased stress, decreased motivation, and a greater likelihood of leaving one's job. So, how do we deal with these situations? Is it possible to help the unaware see themselves more clearly? And if we can't, what can we do to minimize their damage on our success and happiness? I think this piece right here is very important. Unaware colleagues include increased stress, decreased motivation, and a greater likelihood of leaving one's job. Think about your day-to-day work, right? And think about all the people that you interact with. There have been people in my job that I've interacted with that kind of suck the energy out of me, that if I'm on a project with them or if I need to ask them something, sometimes my social anxiety will kind of creep in, and I will purposely not put myself in their path so I don't need to talk to them. And it might seem crazy that I'm even saying this because I'm employed at this company, right? But to be fair, these aren't people that are they're no longer at the company. These are people that I've worked with in the past. Okay. But I have been in situations where, yeah, working with these people has increased my stress, right? Because imagine every single day going to the office and imagine you sit next to this person and there's like no way out. It's like an assigned seating and there's just no other place that you can sit. Or if you do move, you're going to have to move to like the back where no one is. It's just going to be harder to collaborate. So just imagine how much stress that gives you. The decreased motivation, the greater likelihood of leaving your job. I mean, these are all very, very true statements here. Things that I have felt before, and if you're watching, you've probably felt as well. So let's see if we can read a little more to understand. So the next heading here is understanding the problem. So not all badly behaving colleagues suffer from a lack of self-awareness, and not all who do can be helped. Therefore, you must first determine whether the source of the problem is truly someone's lack of self-awareness, and you should ask yourself, what's behind the tension? So it says here, when we're having trouble working with someone, the problem isn't always a lack of self awareness on their part. Interpersonal conflict can arise from different priorities, incompatible communication styles, or a lack of trust. To determine whether you're truly dealing with an unself aware person, consider how others feel around them. Typically, if someone is unaware, there's a consensus about their behavior. More specifically, we've found several consistent behaviors of unself-aware individuals. And I really like this bullet point because there's probably at least someone out there that's watching this video now that can identify at least with one of these bullet points. They can do the mapping of the bullet point to the person. So let's listen and read each of these bullet points, right? So number one, they won't listen to or accept critical feedback, which is huge. I mean, I always feel like in some of the videos that I've talked about, this is a way to become more likable. This is a way to get promoted faster. You want to be the person that can listen to critical feedback all across the ladder, right? Not just from juniors, but also from seniors. Okay, because sometimes juniors, when they join the team, they have a fresh set of eyes and they see things that you might not otherwise see. They cannot empathize with or take the perspective of others. They have difficulty reading a room and tailoring their message to their audience. They possess an inflated opinion of their contributions and performance. They are hurtful to others without realizing it. They take credit for successes and blame others for failures. So again, for people that are watching the video, read these bullet points. We got what, 6 bullet points here? Odds are you currently work with or have interacted with someone that falls under one of these categories or multiple categories, right? They are hurtful to others without realizing. They take credit for successes and blame others for failures. I have a very good story about this that happened a couple of years ago. So in software and tech, and maybe in other industries, correct me if I'm wrong here, there's something called a stand-up where every single day you effectively give an update of the things that you worked on yesterday, the things that you will work on today, and maybe any blockers that lie in your path that are preventing you from getting your work done. And in some companies, we have something called the Scrum Master, which is the person that's assigned to the Scrum meeting that day to take care of, asking people their different questions and going through the room, making sure everyone gives their updates. And I remember one day as I was giving a stand-up, because I'm a talkative person. I like talking to people and, picking at their brain. And this person that I was with, incredibly smart, but he just interrupted me during my speech, during my stand-up and kind of just blurted something out that really didn't make me happy. And it caused me to finish the meeting early. But I remember later that day approaching him at lunch and saying, hey, I really didn't like how you treated me there. And, can we move past that and make it better? Because, this is kind of like my time to be Scrum Master and this is what I like to do. And it's just my style, so sometimes people might do that. And if I remember correctly, their response was, I didn't know that I made you feel that way. So sometimes they can be hurtful without even realizing it. And I think we've all worked with people this way, maybe not even work, but in our own personal lives, right? Okay, so where is this person coming from? It says, in contrast to the unaware, certain difficult colleagues, like office jerks, know exactly what they're doing, but aren't willing to change. I once knew a chief operating officer with a reputation for humiliating his team whenever they disappointed him. When finally confronted about his behavior, his response was, "The best management tool is fear. If they fear you, they will get the work done." Unsurprisingly, his superiors did not share his views and fired him several months later. So I can confidently say I've worked with 4 different managers. The ones that I was scared of are not ones that I'd really want to work with again. Although I will say, and I have to say this, I have to qualify this, the manager that I was the most scared of helped me get out of my sensitive zone. This is the manager that I was talking about in the beginning. And again, if he is watching this video, know that you really helped me grow and become tougher because of the little bit of the cutthroat personality that you had. So sometimes you gotta know where to find the balance. I'm not saying it's great to find someone that you're scared of, but oftentimes if you're someone like me that's sensitive, if you're someone that needs clear direction, sometimes it's good to have a little bit of an intimidating manager, only because they might light that fire under you, right? But to be completely fair, on the flip side of that, I now work with a manager that I feel very good working with, and has been the most supportive manager I've ever worked with. You're right. I don't fear him at all. So that's it's interesting they're talking about that here. The biggest difference between the unaware and the aware don't care are their intentions. The unaware generally want to be collaborative and effective, but don't know they're falling short, whereas the aware don't care, unapologetically acknowledge their behavior. Of course, I'm pushy with clients. It's the only way to make the sale. The unaware can't see how they're showing up. That client meeting went well. Helping the unaware. Once you've determined someone suffers from a lack of self-awareness, it's time to honestly assess whether they can be helped. Think about their intentions and whether they'd want to change. Have you seen them ask for a different perspective or welcome critical feedback? This suggests that it's possible to help them become more self-aware. But the odds can be steep. Our survey found that although 70% of people with unaware colleagues have tried to help them improve, only 31% were successful or very successful. And among those who decided not to help, only 21% said they regretted their decision. So before you step in, ask yourself, am I the right messenger? So I want to read this again, but the odds can be steep. Our survey found that although 70% of people with unaware colleagues have tried to help them improve, only 31% were successful or very successful. It's very hard to get people to change, right? If you try to get someone to change, odds are it's not going to work. As we're seeing now, right? The statistics speak volumes for themselves. Typically, if you want to change, it has to come from you. You have to wake up one day and want an actual change in your life. It has to come from something that's been brewing inside of you, or one day you wake up and you say, I just can't take this anymore. But to get someone else to change is very, very difficult. I'm sure we've all experienced that, whether at work or your personal life. Maybe you're with a partner or a best friend or a friend or even your parents. We've all been there. We've experienced it. So let's learn about what more we can see here or read here. Am I the right messenger? The number one reason our survey respondents gave for not helping an unaware person was that they didn't think they were the right messenger. It's true that when helping the unaware, providing good constructive feedback only gets us part of the way. For someone to truly be open to critical feedback, they must trust us. They must fundamentally believe that we have their best interests at heart. When trust is present, the other person will feel more comfortable being vulnerable, a prerequisite to accept one's unaware behavior. So think about the relationship you have with your unaware colleague. Have you gone out of your way to help or support them in the past? Are you confident they will see your feedback for what it is, a show of support to help them get better, rather than inferring a more nefarious motive? Or are there others who might be better suited to deliver the feedback for you? I think this last piece is very different. Not everyone has the capacity to be the right messenger. Sometimes you might be the person that notices it, and then you might have to relay that information to maybe a manager or someone else in your team that's better suited to deliver that, because it can be very sensitive, right? Odds are, or typically, rather, not odds are, typically you have to know the person pretty well before you even attempt to give this information, right? Imagine if you just meet someone today and they're already giving you feedback, you're probably going to brush it off because you're thinking, I just met this person. What do they know about me? They don't know anything. But imagine if it's a best friend or a parent or a colleague that you've worked on several projects, you have a great working relationship with them. If they try to give you this feedback and it's genuine, this kind of goes back to something I was talking about a long time ago in one of my other videos about like giving genuine feedback instead of just acknowledging someone's work for the sake of acknowledging it. If it's genuine, people will listen. If they can see that it's fake, if they can see through you, they probably just won't listen. It won't really work. Am I willing to accept the worst case scenario? The second most common reason people decide not to help the unaware is that the risk is simply too high. As one of our study participants noted, I may not be able to help and trying might just make them angry. The consequences of help gone awry, I always fail to pronounce that word well, can range from uncomfortable, tears to silent treatment, yelling to career limiting. An employee might quit, a colleague may try to sabotage us, a boss could fire us. Here, power differentials are a factor. For example, Though unaware bosses have an especially detrimental impact on their employees' job satisfaction, performance, and well being, confronting one's boss is inherently riskier because of the positional power she holds. Conversely, the risk is usually lower with peers and lower still with direct reports. In fact, if you have an unaware employee, it is literally your job to help them. But regardless of their place on the organizational chart, we must be ready to accept the worst case should it occur. If you believe you can help, then what's the best way to do so? There are certainly many helpful resources on providing high quality feedback, and most apply with the unaware. There are, however, three practices worth underscoring for these individuals. So, just to look over here, for example, though unaware bosses have an especially detrimental impact on their employees' job satisfaction, performance, and well being, confronting one's boss is inherently riskier because of the positional power she holds. Now, I I sort of agree with this, but it really depends on the type of manager that you have. For example, I really wholeheartedly believe that with my current manager, I could approach him and tell him, give him feedback about something that's bothering me, and he will make a best effort to try and make that better, to ameliorate that, right? Whereas maybe with other managers that I have, the response would have been different. So you have to have a good gauge on your relationship with your manager. And if not, like it says here, maybe you get someone else to do it for you. Maybe you feel like a lot of people on the team are talking about something and it takes that one person to make the move for the rest of the team. But of course, the risk is usually lower with their peers. This part is very interesting too. If you have an unaware employee, it's literally your job to help them. So funny enough, I've been thinking recently about switching over to management. And literally in the past couple of days, I've had conversations with my manager about potentially switching to management and what that could be like. So I feel like I am the type of person that could deliver this type of feedback and criticism and critique and help these unaware people sort of evolve and get out of the state, because I just feel like I possess these skills, like people skills, soft skills, so on and so forth. And I feel like by me believing that, then maybe it's true, right? So that's just the reason why I might want to become a manager. But let's keep going here. So it says, first, talk to them in person. Our research suggests those who provide feedback via email are 33% less successful. Second, instead of bringing up their behavior out of the blue, practice strategic patience. If possible, wait until your colleague expresses feelings of frustration or dissatisfaction that, unbeknownst to them, are being caused by their unawareness. Ask if you can offer an observation in the spirit of their success and well-being. Using the word feedback risks defensiveness. Third, if they agree, focus on their specific observable behavior and how it's limiting their success. End the conversation by reaffirming your support and asking how you can help. This sounds a lot like something I talked about in a previous video called the compliment sandwich, where you start off by giving a compliment. In the middle, you deliver your feedback. It has to be very concise, very targeted feedback. But still, like it says here, reaffirm your support and ask how you can help. That's the end of the compliment sandwich, where you end off with support, a compliment, a very strong sense of, I will take care of you. I'll make sure that you can succeed here. But a lot of these points make a lot of sense, right? Talking to someone in person. I mean, I do think nowadays, and trust me, like I work in an office where I sit next to so many people, and even still, me being a very talkative person, I'll still choose to sometimes message them via internal tooling like Slack, if you use that, or Microsoft Teams, or any other internal tooling you have. But obviously, talking to them in person is a lot better, right? Second, instead of bringing up their behavior out of the blue, practice strategic patience. I think this is good too. Wait for the right time. If you saw one of my videos before, it was about learning how to ask, right? How to ask for something. Wait for the right moment. Use the right momentum to be able to ask for something. In this case, use the right momentum to be able to deliver that message where you want to help this person, okay? What to do if they don't change? It's easy to feel hopeless when you can't help someone who is unaware. The good news is, although we can't force insight on them, we can minimize their impact on us. Mindfully reframe their behavior. The popular workplace practice of mindfulness can be an effective tool for dealing with the unaware. Specifically, noticing that we're feeling in a given moment allows us to reframe the situation and be more resilient. Here's one tool to notice but not get drawn in our negative reactions to the unaware. I first came up with the laugh track when I had the misfortune of working with an aware don't care boss. One day, after a particularly unpleasant encounter, I recall my favorite TV show growing up, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Mary's boss was a surly man named Lou Grant. On a good day, Lou was grumpy. On a bad day, he was downright abusive. But because his comments were followed by a canned laugh track, they became surprisingly endearing. I decided that the next time my boss said something horrible, I'd imagine a laugh track behind it instead. I was frequently surprised at how much less hurtful and occasionally hilarious this tool rendered him. Yeah, in our negative reactions to the unaware, I want to focus on this because, again, I am someone that's very sensitive, and I sometimes get really in my feelings Okay, I'm very prone to listening to what people say and really thinking about it and stewing on it and ruminating about it. And it's just sometimes like this tool right here, maybe the laugh track is something you can do to help you sort of break out of that. So practice ways of gratitude, maybe not gratitude, but mindfulness, right? How can you take what this person's saying and you listen to it and you say, okay, I realize what they're saying is not something that I really like to hear, but I maybe because I watched Raphael's video, now I know how to react to it. I can put it into perspective, realize that it's sort of just a for now thing, and hopefully eventually in the future this will get better either by me or by someone else, right? So practice that mindfulness and being in the moment. Okay, find their humanity. As easy as it can be to forget, even the most unaware among us are still human. If we remember this, instead of flying off the handle when they're behaving badly, we can recognize that at the core their unaware behavior is a sign that they are struggling. We can adopt the mindset of compassion without judgment. Researchers have found that honing our compassion skills help us remain calm in the face of difficult people and situations. As management professor Huria Jazeri points out, there are negative consequences when we are thinking bad thoughts about someone. Compassion allows us to let them go. I think this is very, very important. We adopt the mindset of compassion without judgment, right? It says we can recognize at the core their unaware behavior is a sign that they are struggling. I think this is also a very great mindset to adopt that not only will help you in the workplace, but other places in life. If you see someone struggling, and man, I really want to, there's I feel like there's a razor for this. Is it Hanlon's razor? Hanlon's razor? A heuristic principle suggests never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. Maybe not the best example here, but it almost sounds like if you realize that someone is struggling, realize that they are also in a tough position. So don't judge them for something that you know is bothering them, something that's affecting them, right? If you realize that they are in the same position, if they're unaware, just like it says here, if they're struggling with something, then adopt the mindset of compassion without judgment. You know they're going through something tough. You know that if you were in that position, you'd also be struggling just like they are. So try to see it from their perspective. And if you see they're attempting to get out of it, making strides and improving themselves, then don't judge them for that, right? So just another mindset. I love this article. It's I love the whole mindset thing because that's what my whole channel is about. Play the long game. When it comes to dealing with the unaware, one of the most important things to remember is that just because they're that way now doesn't mean they won't change in the future. Unaware behaviors sometimes have to be pointed out multiple times before the feedback begins to stick. Or as one of our research participants noted, sometimes they have to bump their head enough times to finally see the light. In our research, we've studied people who made dramatic, transformational improvements in their self-awareness. Though it takes courage, commitment, and humility, it is indeed possible. And whether or not the people around us choose to improve their self-awareness, we have complete control over the choice to improve ours. Find a quick high-level assessment of your self-awareness here. At the end of the day, perhaps that's where our energy is best spent. So I love this article. My whole channel is dedicated to sort of career growth and mindset in the workplace, right? I'm really trying to hone in on people that are at 9 to 5s in their office, sharing insights, sharing articles like this for ways that you can improve your mindset. You can improve your own self-awareness, even this last sentence here says, perhaps that's where our energy is best spent. Maybe we should not worry about others. We should worry about ourselves and make sure that we're improving every single day, better than yesterday, better than last week, better than last month, etc., etc. So yeah, this is a new format I tried for this video. I'm really happy to do this. I'm going to keep trying to find a lot of articles like this that are relevant to the workplace, relevant to people in a 9 to 5 job, people that are really interested in finding fulfillment in their workplace without having to necessarily leave. So if you like this type of thing, let me know in the comments. Are you struggling with this now? Have you worked with someone that was unaware of how they are perceived by others, or maybe how others perceive them? Which I guess that's the same thing. I said the same thing twice, but let me know in the comments if this is something that you're struggling with. Let me know if this article helped you maybe reframe your mindset. I'll leave a link in the description so you can see it. And yeah, with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one. I'm off to play Oblivion again, so if you're a gamer out there, you know what I'm talking about. Very excited for that. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Take it easy.